Have you ever felt that sting, that deep burning feeling when someone disrespects you? Maybe it was a rude comment, a dismissive glance, or being treated as if you didn't matter. It's painful, right? It can make your heart race, your mind swirl with anger, and your spirit sink. And if we're not careful, that single moment of disrespect can ruin our entire day, or even our sense of self-worth. But what if I told you there's a way to face disrespect without losing your peace? What if you could handle it with strength, wisdom, and even grace, instead of anger or hurt? The ancient Stoic philosophers faced betrayal, insults, and disrespect almost daily, yet they remained calm, steady, and powerful. Their secret? A mindset built not on controlling others, but on mastering themselves. In today's video, we're diving into 10 powerful lessons from Stoic wisdom that will completely change how you deal with disrespect. You'll learn how to stay calm, reflect wisely, set clear boundaries, and even transform painful moments into opportunities for personal growth. So if you're tired of feeling powerless when others treat you poorly, stick around. This could be the shift you've been waiting for. Let's begin. All right, let's dive into lesson 1. Keep your calm. Now, this might sound simple, even obvious, but it's actually one of the hardest things to do when someone disrespects you. When someone says something rude or dismissive, our first instinct is usually to react, to snap back, to defend ourselves. And that's completely natural. After all, no one likes to feel belittled or insulted. But here's the thing. According to the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, it's not the event itself that disturbs us, but our interpretation of it. He said, people are disturbed not by things but by the views they take of them. In other words, disrespect on its own has no real power over us. It's how we think about it that determines how we feel. Let's put this into a real-world example. Imagine you're at work and during a meeting, a colleague cuts you off mid-sentence and says, "That's a stupid idea." Instantly, you feel your face get hot. You might want to argue, maybe even storm out. But if you apply Stoic wisdom here, you would pause and remind yourself, their words are a reflection of them, not a measure of my value. When you truly understand that someone else's disrespect is about them, their own frustration, insecurity, or poor judgment, you take away its power to hurt you. You don't have to internalize it. You don't have to let it define your mood or your sense of self. Staying calm doesn't mean you agree with what they said. It doesn't mean you accept bad behavior. It simply means you protect your own peace. It means you refuse to hand over your emotional control to someone who probably doesn't even deserve your attention. Think about it this way. Your calmness is your shield. When you stay composed, you stay in control. When you react impulsively, you give the other person control over you. The next time someone disrespects you, whether it's a stranger cutting you off in traffic, a family member making a passive-aggressive comment, or a coworker being dismissive, take a deep breath, pause, and tell yourself, this is just noise. I will not let it shake my peace. Remember, you are not what others say about you. You are who you choose to be, moment by moment, especially in the tough moments. Staying calm doesn't make you weak. In fact, it shows incredible strength. It shows that you live by your principles, not by the chaotic emotions of others. And that's exactly what the Stoics admired most. Inner strength, self-mastery, and unwavering dignity. So lesson 1, keep your calm. When disrespect comes your way, be like a mountain standing tall through a storm, unmoved, unbothered, and grounded in your own power. Now, let's move into lesson 2. Reflect on yourself. When someone disrespects us, it's so easy to get stuck in a cycle of blame. They're so rude. How dare they treat me like that? And honestly, sometimes that's completely fair. People can behave terribly for no good reason. But here's a powerful Stoic twist. Before pointing the finger outward, we should always turn the mirror inward first. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, said, The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. In other words, what's happening inside you matters more than what's happening around you. So the next time someone disrespects you, take a moment to ask yourself a few honest questions. Is there any truth in what they said? Did I perhaps contribute to the situation, even unintentionally? How can I respond in a way that reflects my values, not just my emotions? Let me give you an example. Suppose you're working on a group project and a teammate snaps. You're always late and you don't carry your weight. Ouch, that stings, right? Your first instinct might be to get defensive, to list all the times they dropped the ball. But what if instead you paused and reflected? Maybe you realize that, yeah, you have been late a few times. Maybe you've been distracted and haven't been giving 100%. Now, that doesn't justify the way they spoke to you, but it does give you an opportunity, a golden one, to own your part, learn, and improve. Banken toilamzi tipteo vudan banek home. Self-reflection is not about blaming yourself for how others treat you. It's about being strong enough to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I use this moment to become better? And sometimes reflection will reveal that you did absolutely nothing wrong. Sometimes the disrespect truly belongs to the other person and not to you at all. But even then, you still win because you took the time to check in with yourself, to stay aligned with your values, and to act with integrity. Think of self-reflection like cleaning a window. When you keep your window clean, you see the world and yourself much more clearly. No smudges of pride, no fog of anger, just clear, honest insight. The Stoics believe that true power comes from within. It's not about controlling other people's behavior. It's about controlling your response, your growth, and your mind. So the next time disrespect shows up at your doorstep, don't just slam the door in its face. Take a moment, reflect. Ask yourself, what does this situation reveal about me, and how can I grow from it? Lesson 2. Reflect on yourself, because every challenge, even disrespect, is a chance to become wiser, stronger, and more deeply rooted in who you are. Ready to move forward? Good. Now let's move into lesson 3. Learn to pause. Imagine this, you're scrolling through your phone after a long day, and suddenly you get a message. One of those messages. Maybe it's passive-aggressive, maybe it's downright rude. Instantly, your blood pressure spikes. You want to type out a fiery reply, hit send, and show them exactly who they're messing with. But if you do that, who's really in control? You or your emotions? The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "Whenever you are angry, be assured that it is not only a present evil, but that you have increased a habit." In other words, every time we let anger drive our actions, we're strengthening a dangerous pattern. We're training ourselves to react impulsively, without thought, without wisdom. That's why the Stoics emphasized one very simple but powerful tool: pause. When disrespect hits you, don't respond immediately. Don't let the fire of anger push you into saying or doing something you'll regret. Instead, pause. Breathe. Give yourself a small space between the stimulus and your response. Here's a practical example. Let's say your boss criticizes your work in front of everyone during a meeting. It feels humiliating. The urge to defend yourself or even lash out bubbles up fast. But instead of snapping back, you quietly take a deep breath. You let a few seconds pass. You even count to 5 in your head. By pausing, you give yourself the gift of clarity. You might realize, hey, I can address this calmly later, one-on-one, without making a bigger scene. Or you might realize this says more about their leadership style than my actual value. That tiny pause changes everything. It doesn't mean you're weak or that you're letting someone walk over you. It means you are choosing when and how you engage. It means you are acting, not reacting. Think of it like this. When someone throws a hot coal at you, you have 2 options. You can catch it barehanded and burn yourself in anger, or you can let it drop to the ground and walk away unharmed. The pause, That sacred second of breathing, of waiting, is you refusing to grab the hot coal. The beauty of learning to pause is that it becomes a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. Over time, disrespect loses its power to hijack your emotions. You become a person who is calm under pressure, wise in moments of chaos, and deeply anchored in self-control. So next time disrespect hits, in a text, in a meeting, at a family dinner, remember, pause, breathe, choose your next move carefully. It's not about ignoring the problem, it's about handling it with a level head and a steady heart. Lesson 3, learn to pause, because your response shapes your destiny more than any disrespect ever could. Alright, feeling stronger already? Let's keep building. Now let's move into lesson 4, practice empathy. I know what you might be thinking, empathy for someone who just disrespected me? Are you serious? And honestly, that's a fair reaction. When we're treated poorly, the last thing we want to do is offer kindness or understanding. We want justice, we want fairness, we want them to realize how wrong they were. But here's where Stoicism invites us to take a higher path, not for them, but for ourselves. The great Stoic thinker Epictetus once said, "Seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourselves." That means we don't find peace, happiness, or strength by trying to change other people. We find it by changing how we see and respond to the world. And empathy is one of the most powerful ways to reclaim your peace. Let's break it down with an example. Imagine you're at a family gathering, you're talking about your new business idea, and an older relative scoffs and says, "That'll never work, you're dreaming too big." It feels like a slap in the face. You could easily get defensive, start an argument, or shut down completely. Or you could practice empathy. You could take a deep breath and think, maybe they're projecting their own fears onto me. Maybe they grew up in a time when taking risks was punished, not encouraged. Maybe their disrespect isn't about me at all. Maybe it's about their own disappointments or limitations. This shift in perspective doesn't excuse their behavior. It doesn't mean you have to accept being treated poorly, but it does mean you don't have to carry their negativity in your heart. Empathy helps you step outside your own hurt feelings and see the bigger picture. It transforms disrespect from a personal attack into a window into someone else's struggles, fears, or ignorance. And here's the beauty of it. When you practice empathy, you stay in control. You decide not to mirror their negativity. You decide to respond with understanding, or at least with calm detachment. Sometimes empathy even disarms the situation completely. Instead of escalating a conflict, your calm, empathetic response can surprise the other person, and sometimes it can even open the door to real conversation or healing. But even if it doesn't, you win. You stay true to your own values. You protect your inner peace. You show strength, not weakness. So next time someone disrespects you, whether it's a sarcastic comment from a coworker, a hurtful jab from a friend, or even a random stranger's bad attitude, try this. Pause, breathe, and silently ask yourself, what might they be struggling with that made them act this way? Can I see their behavior as a reflection of their pain, not my worth? Lesson 4. Practice empathy, because sometimes the best defense against disrespect is understanding that it's not really about you at all. Alright, you're doing amazing so far. Now let's move into lesson 5. Concentrate on virtue. When someone disrespects you, it's tempting to get dragged into the mud with them. You might think, if they're gonna be rude, I'll be even ruder. If they insult me, I'll throw it back twice as hard. It feels good for a second, but deep down it leaves you feeling worse, not better. The Stoics teach us a different way. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote that virtue is nothing else than right reason. In simpler words, being virtuous means acting with wisdom, not emotion, staying true to what's right, even when others don't. In Stoicism, virtue, qualities like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, is considered the highest good. Everything else, wealth, reputation, even the opinions of others, is secondary. So when you face disrespect, ask yourself, what is the virtuous response here? What action would reflect my highest values, not my lowest impulses? Here's a real-world example. Let's say you're in a heated argument with a coworker. They roll their eyes and mutter under their breath, clearly trying to provoke you. Your ego screams, snap back, show them who's boss. But if you concentrate on virtue, you pause and think, if I value self-control, how would I respond? If I value justice, how can I make sure I act fairly, even now? Maybe that means calmly addressing the issue later, one-on-one, instead of making a scene. Maybe it means choosing silence and walking away with dignity, refusing to add fuel to the fire. By focusing on virtue, you stay in control of your own story. You don't let other people's bad behavior write your script. You choose to act in a way that strengthens your character, not weakens it. Here's a quick mental trick you can use. Imagine that everything you do today is being recorded. Not by the public, but by your future self. Your future self is watching. Would they be proud of how you handled disrespect? Or would they wish you had stayed truer to your values? Concentrating on virtue gives you that inner compass. It reminds you that every challenge, even the ugly ones, is an opportunity to practice strength, wisdom, and integrity. And here's the beautiful part. When you live by virtue, you're untouchable in the best way. No matter what others throw at you, rudeness, insults, disrespect, they can't shake your foundation, because your worth doesn't depend on their behavior. It depends on who you choose to be. So next time you face disrespect, don't just react. Pause, reflect, and ask yourself, what would a wise, courageous, and just person do right now? Lesson 5. Concentrate on virtue, because no one can take away your values unless you hand them over. All right, you're doing an incredible job strengthening your mindset. Let's keep going. Now let's dive into Lesson 6, Embrace Acceptance. Have you ever caught yourself obsessing over how unfair someone's behavior was? Maybe you replayed the moment over and over in your head, thinking, how could they say that, or why would they treat me that way? It's exhausting, right? And the worst part is, it doesn't change what happened. Here's where Stoic wisdom gives us a life-changing insight. You can't control what others do, but you can always control how you respond. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." In other words, focus on what you can control and let go of everything else. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to fix it, to demand an apology, to change their mind, to make them see your worth. But most of the time, their reaction is completely outside your control. Trying to control other people's opinions is like trying to hold back the tide with your hands. It's frustrating, it's draining, and ultimately, it's impossible. Here's a real-world example. Imagine you've been working hard at your job, and yet your boss never acknowledges your efforts. Instead, they constantly criticize you in front of others. You could stew in anger, feeling more and more resentful. Or you could embrace acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean you agree with the disrespect. It means you recognize, I can't control their words or behavior. I can only control my response, my attitude, and my next steps. Maybe acceptance leads you to have a calm, professional conversation with your boss. Maybe it leads you to look for a better job where your work is valued. Or maybe it simply helps you protect your inner peace while doing the best you can in your current situation. Acceptance frees you. It frees you from the endless, exhausting battle of trying to change things that are not yours to change. It also sharpens your focus. Instead of wasting your energy on resentment, you invest it in growth. Instead of trying to fix others, you work on strengthening yourself. Here's a simple practice you can use. Next time you feel disrespected, silently ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, breathe and let it go. If the answer is yes, then take wise, calm action. Acceptance doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful because it focuses your energy where it actually makes a difference, on yourself. So, lesson 6, embrace acceptance, because true peace begins when you stop fighting the things you cannot change. You're doing an amazing job building a stoic mindset, stronger, calmer, wiser with every lesson. All right, we're moving into lesson 7, use humor. Now, you might be thinking, wait, humor? When someone disrespects me, shouldn't I be serious and show them they can't mess with me? And yes, sometimes firmness is necessary, but here's the thing. Humor is one of the most powerful shields you can use against disrespect, because it protects your peace without dragging you down into anger or bitterness. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "You have mastered yourself when you know how to deal with what you should not take seriously." And honestly, many of the disrespectful moments we encounter are exactly that. Things we don't need to take so seriously. Let's imagine a simple scenario. You're giving a presentation at work and someone in the audience smirks and says, "Well, that's one way to do it, I guess." You feel that flash of irritation. You could confront them and escalate the situation. Or you could smile and say, "Hey, I like to keep life interesting," and move right along. See what happened there? Instead of getting defensive, you stayed in control. You used humor to deflect the negativity and keep the energy in the room light without compromising your dignity. Humor isn't about making fun of yourself or pretending disrespect didn't happen. It's about choosing not to let small-minded comments pull you into their drama. It's about rising above with a smile. Here's another quick real-world example. Imagine you're at a family dinner and a relative makes a passive-aggressive remark like, "Some people just can't get their lives together." Instead of getting sucked into an argument, you could chuckle and say, "Good thing I'm a work in progress, not a finished product." Then steer the conversation somewhere positive. The beauty of humor is that it disarms people. It diffuses tension. It shows that you are confident enough not to take every little jab to heart. And it's not just about the other person. It's about you. When you can laugh, even a little, you protect your own mental state. You remind yourself that not everything deserves a serious emotional investment. Here's a quick tip. Whenever you feel yourself getting tense or angry because of someone's disrespect, silently ask yourself, "Ban kan tôi tiếp tục đoạn văn này không?" Is this really worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer will be no. And when you realize that, a small knowing smile might just come naturally. Of course, there are moments when disrespect crosses serious lines, and in those cases, humor might not be appropriate. But for everyday annoyances, a little bit of lightness can go a long way. So lesson 7, use humor, because sometimes the best way to win is simply not to play the game. You're doing amazing work building these stoic muscles. All right, moving forward, welcome to lesson 8, set clear boundaries. Let's be real for a second. Stoicism doesn't teach you to become a doormat. It's not about smiling politely while people walk all over you. It's about staying calm, staying strong, and standing your ground with dignity. When someone disrespects you repeatedly, you have every right and in fact a responsibility to yourself to set clear boundaries, not with anger, not with revenge, but with firmness, clarity, and self-respect. The Stoics believe that we can't control how others behave, but we can control what we allow in our lives, and boundaries are how we do that. Let's walk through a real-life example. Imagine you have a coworker who constantly interrupts you during meetings. Every time you start sharing an idea, they jump in, talk over you, and brush aside your points. Now, you could stay silent and stew in resentment, or you could calmly, respectfully set a boundary. Next time it happens, you might say something like, "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I'd like to finish my thought before we move forward. Thank you." Short, respectful, clear, No drama, no shouting, just letting them and everyone else know that your voice deserves to be heard. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about defining the space where your dignity, your time, and your peace are protected. And here's the key. When you set a boundary, you must be prepared to enforce it calmly. If someone keeps crossing the line, you may need to distance yourself, have a firmer conversation, or even remove yourself from that environment if necessary. And yes, sometimes setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first. If you're used to staying silent to avoid conflict, speaking up can feel scary. But remember, every time you set a healthy boundary, you're sending a powerful message to the world and to yourself. I respect myself. I value my peace. I will not tolerate behavior that harms my well-being. Here's a small mental shift that might help you. Think of boundaries not as walls, but as fences with gates. You're not shutting everyone out. You're simply deciding what and who you allow into your space and under what conditions. You don't have to justify your boundaries to everyone. You don't have to apologize for them. You just have to be clear, consistent, and calm. So next time someone disrespects you, pause and ask yourself, is it time to set a boundary? And if it is, have the courage to do it, respectfully but firmly. Lesson 8. Set clear boundaries, because self-respect is not negotiable. All right, you're getting stronger with every lesson. Here we are at lesson 9. Choose forgiveness. Now I know, forgiveness might not be the first thing you want to hear when you've just been disrespected. When someone treats you badly, the last thing you feel like doing is letting it go. You want justice. You want them to know they were wrong. And honestly, that feeling is valid. You're human. But here's a hard truth the Stoics understood very deeply. Holding on to anger hurts you far more than it hurts the person who wronged you. Forgiveness isn't about saying what you did was okay. It's not about pretending the disrespect never happened. It's about choosing to let go of the poison, so it doesn't continue to live rent-free in your mind and heart. Think about it like this. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. Every grudge, every resentment, every hurtful memory adds another rock. Pretty soon the weight becomes unbearable. You're exhausted, bitter, and drained, and yet the person who disrespected you, they're walking around just fine. Forgiveness is setting that heavy backpack down. Not for them, for you. Here's a real-world example. Let's say an old friend betrayed your trust. They spread rumors about you and you lost connections because of it. You could spend months, even years, replaying the betrayal in your head, fantasizing about revenge, drowning in bitterness. Or you could decide, I refuse to let your bad choices define my peace. I choose to forgive, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free. Forgiveness in the Stoic sense is an act of strength, not weakness. It says, I am the master of my emotions. You don't get to live inside my mind. Now, let's be clear. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to keep toxic people in your life. You can forgive someone and still set boundaries. You can forgive someone and still decide they no longer have a seat at your table. Forgiveness is about cleaning your side of the street. It's about reclaiming your power. If you're struggling with this, try this simple exercise. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, I release you. I free myself. Even if you don't fully believe it yet, keep practicing. Forgiveness is often a process, not a one-time event. And here's the real gift. When you forgive, you make space for better things. Peace, creativity, strength, even joy. So lesson 9, choose forgiveness, because carrying anger weighs you down, but forgiveness sets you free. You're almost there, only one more powerful lesson to go. Here we are, the final stretch. Lesson 10, change your perspective. If there's one Stoic tool that can completely transform how you deal with disrespect, it's this: shift how you see the situation. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king himself, said, our life is what our thoughts make it. In other words, reality isn't just about what happens to us. It's about how we interpret what happens to us. When someone disrespects you, it's easy to zoom in so closely that the disrespect feels massive. It feels like the only thing that matters in that moment. But what if you could zoom out? Imagine you're looking at a map. If you only stare at one tiny street, it feels huge and overwhelming. But when you zoom out and see the entire city, that street becomes just one small part of a much bigger picture. The same is true with disrespect. Here's a real-world example. Let's say a random person cuts you off rudely in traffic. You could get furious. You could honk, yell, and carry that anger with you the entire day. Or you could shift your perspective and think, this is one moment in my entire day. 1 second of rudeness in a life filled with thousands of beautiful seconds. This says more about their impatience than about my value. Perspective allows you to shrink the problem down to its actual size, not the size your emotions want to inflate it to. And it works for bigger situations too. Let's say a colleague disrespects you publicly. With the wrong perspective, you might spiral. Everyone thinks less of me now. I look so weak. But with Stoic perspective, you might realize their bad behavior revealed their character, not mine. I have an opportunity to demonstrate grace, strength, and dignity. Here's a powerful question to ask yourself when facing disrespect. Will this matter a year from now, 5 years from now? Most of the time, the answer is a clear no. And once you realize that, the weight of the moment lifts almost instantly. Perspective gives you emotional distance, it gives you wisdom, and it gives you power. The power to choose where you place your attention and energy. You are not obligated to make every insult, every slight, every rude comment a headline event in your life. You get to choose. Is this worth my peace? Is this truly important in the grand scheme of my life? Most of the time, you'll find the answer is no. So lesson 10, change your perspective, because when you change the way you see things, you change the way you live. And there we have it. 10 powerful Stoic lessons to help you deal with disrespect in a calm, wise, and empowering way. I hope that as you move forward, you'll remember, you can't always control how others treat you, but you can always control how you respond. Every challenge, every rude comment, every unfair moment is an opportunity to strengthen your character, to practice wisdom, and to stay true to your highest self. It's not about being perfect. It's about practicing these lessons day by day, moment by moment, and over time becoming someone who's unshakable, no matter what life throws at you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It means a lot that you chose to invest in your own growth and wisdom. If you found even one of these lessons helpful, it would mean the world if you could tap that like button. It really helps support the channel and spread Stoic wisdom to more people who might need it. And if you'd like to keep growing, learning, and strengthening your mindset, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. We have plenty more ancient wisdom to explore together. I'd also love to hear from you. Which Stoic lesson resonated with you the most? Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and I'd love to know which idea you're excited to apply in your life. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and as always, stay stoic. See you in the next video.